You're watching The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales, streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
So a man is driving a train with 50 passengers on board, and he completely misses the last stop. Going way too fast, he goes into a turn, crashes, kills everybody on board but him. He gets arrested, is considered, negligence, homicide. He's sentenced to death by the electric chair. As he was waiting to be executed, he's offered his last meal. And he says, well, I'll have a banana. So the guards get him a banana, he eats it, and they take him to the electric chair and strap him in, and he sits there for a minute, and they pull the lever and shock him. Brrr. And he lives. Well, once you do that, you kind of have to release the person. It's, you electrocute him, and so they release him. And there's such a shortage in the train community that he gets his job back. And on his very first run, they have 60 passengers on the train, and the exact same thing happens. He carelessly blows past a stop, going way too fast, hits a turn, rolls the train, kills everybody on board but him. He is arrested again, sentenced to death again. And when they come to ask him for his last meal, he says, well, this time I'll have 2 bananas. So they bring him his bananas, and he eats them. They take him to the electric chair and hook him up and shock him. And he's still alive. So they do it again. Still nothing. A third time, and he's still alive. And they have to release him. Well, then these idiots at the train company hire him back. He's on his first route, and he's got almost 70 passengers on this route. And he goes along, and he completely ignores a stop, barrels through, crashes the train, kills everybody but him. He says, so they say, well, what do you want for your last meal? Because he's sentenced to death again. And he says, well, this time I'll have 3 bananas. And the guard's like, no, I don't know how, but I think the bananas have been making you invulnerable to the chair, and we're not going to have that happen. So no, you can't have bananas. He goes, all right, fine, then I don't want anything. So they take him to the electric chair on an empty stomach. They strap him in. They pull the lever. Nothing. Pull it again, pull it again, and pull it again. And they just about black out the city over and over, trying to kill this guy. And nothing happens. And the guard looks at him and goes, how? How are you doing this? We didn't let you have the bananas. What is it? And he goes, it's not the bananas. I'm just a really bad conductor. Stay tuned for the Dan Wickline Show. Everybody, welcome to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. We got a great lineup today on, well, we got a lineup today on The Experience. We have, after this, tonight we're going to have What's in the Box, and I believe that's it. I don't believe we've got a sketch up with Mog and Mel tonight. JD, tell me if I'm wrong. But so you've got me, you got Jenna. Yes,
we don't. We do not, but I believe we still have a Space Cadets.
Oh, okay. I didn't see anything about Space Cadets. Normally, Jay gives me the information, but he didn't. So, all right. Well, we've got a couple of shows tonight. You want to stick around for that? We, of course, are going to talk about episode 2 of Secret Invasion. I see Larissa has done the homework. Excellent, excellent. It's good to see everybody here, bright and early, ready to go. We've got Ed, we've got Canoness Lucia, Triple B, Cool, Josh, Larissa, and of course JD on the board. So good to see you guys. All right, we are going to get into the news, and then we'll talk about episode 2 of Secret Invasion, and then we're going to do the key collectibles that we meant to do yesterday, but didn't, because it was such an interesting day yesterday. So talking about Warhammer. So today we are going to jump into the news, and this is a pretty interesting story. We've only got, I think, 4 news stories, but they're pretty interesting ones. And we're going to start with, this is only getting a moderate amount of coverage. It's not really hitting the big trades like Deadline and Hollywood Reporter and stuff, but it is hitting some of the other ones like People Magazine, Insider, stuff like that. So this says Jonathan Majors has filed his own domestic violence complaint against the alleged victim in his New York assault and harassment case. The Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania actor met with law enforcement last Wednesday following his appearance on June 20th at the Manhattan Criminal Court and filed domestic violence incident report at a precinct in Manhattan's Chinatown neighborhood near where the incident that led to his March 25th arrest happened. Now, in the complaint, Majors claimed the drunk and hysterical woman caused him pain and bleeding after the alleged assault, according to Insider, which obtained a copy of the report and a sworn affidavit. Now, the actor also alleged in the report that the woman had attacked him in previous incidents, though he said he did not file reports in the past, and the Manhattan District Attorney Office declined requests for comments, while the NYPD confirmed that its investigation into the incident is ongoing. Now, Majors has also accused the woman in question of stealing his iPhone and spending somewhere between $6,000 and $7,000 on his credit cards following the incident. Let's see. Within a few weeks of these false allegations, we provided the district attorney with evidence of Mr. Majors' innocence. Last week, we delivered additional compelling evidence to the district attorney. This is all coming from Majors' attorney, Priya Chaudhry. And she said in a statement following his court appearance last Tuesday, following this, we strongly requested the district attorney dismiss all charges against Mr. Majors immediately. While we are hopeful that the district attorney is reviewing these materials in good faith and will do the right thing soon to accelerate our case, we've requested a trial date ASAP. Now, the actor is expected to return to court on August 3rd for his trial. And there is also some word that a order to appear, I think it's called, was put out for the woman in question, and but it was not enforced. So we'll have to see how all this pans out. But it sounds like Majors is actively trying to defend himself, and supposedly everything they're accusing, they have video evidence and documentation to back up. So. All right, moving on to our second story. Kevin Bacon is fronting another television series. He's done The Following, City on a Hill, and he's going to lead a genre action series called The Bondsman for Amazon Prime. Now, the drama, which scored a straight-to-series order, comes from creator Granger David, who did the shorts film The Chair, which was seen at the Palme d'Or and at the Cannes Film Festival. And it's done for Blumhouse Television. Now, The Bondsman is centered on Hub Halloran, which Bacon will be playing, a backwoods bounty hunter who comes back from the dead with an unexpected second chance at life and love and a nearly forgotten musical career, only to find that his old job now has a demonic new twist. It's based on an original idea from Granger David, and production will not start until after the labor negotiations are resolved. Now, that sounds similar to some ideas I've heard before. R.I.P.D., a show called Brimstone back in, I want to say the 90s, stuff like that. But the musical touch is obviously in there because it's Bacon, but it should be interesting to see how this progresses. But the fact that it got a straight to series order is a really good sign. Brimstone underrated. Yes, Brimstone was very underrated. Yeah. And of course, the actor who would go on to play Lionel Luthor was Satan in that, and he was brilliant. And I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now, but he also plays the Riddler, the voice of the Riddler in the Batman animated series. So the guy is fantastic. All right, we're going to move on to some Star Wars news. One of the threads, if you've watched season 1 of Andor, you have not missed the review of Void Rivals. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, Mark. I've got it right there, as you can see. I just haven't had a chance to read it. I will definitely read it, and John Glover, thank you. I will definitely read it, and I will let you know, Mark, when the review will come up. So if you watched Andor, something happens in the very first episode of the series, and it's kind of the catalyst for all the dominoes that fall afterwards. And that is Cassian goes to this other planet trying to track down the person he calls his sister, someone that he grew up with on his home planet. Now, I don't know if she was his actual sister or if they were just close, but so that's the reason he goes to this other planet. That's why he gets into it with the police there, and he ends up on the run, and it's the first domino that does everything. Well, if somebody asked Tony Gilroy, who is the showrunner and creator of Andor, he also did the Rogue One movie. So they asked him if that particular plot thread was going to be resolved in season 2, and he ended up giving a very long answer. And I quote, "One of the important things in this show, because of the expanse of it, and because of the detail of it, is knowing when and where to make things intricate and have them tie together. And the other side of it is knowing when to let things go and have chaos. And because that's what life is like, and finding that balance that suits the storytelling is part of it. I don't feel beholden to what you're talking about in any way, but there are a lot of things that we do that are intricate that we weed along the way. So that's a complicated answer." He went on to talk about the time jumping that they're going to be doing in the second season. He said, "When we come back later, it's literally like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then we'll jump a year. And then it's be like 4 or 5 days, and then we'll jump a year. And then there'll be another 4 or 5 days, and we'll jump another year. And be another 4 or 5 days." Yeah. I don't know whether anybody ever did it before, because I don't know if anybody had a chance to do it before. We're in this brand new era of making these shows. These shows are all new. This whole idea of how to make these shows and the economics of scale of them is new, and everything is new. This really seems like a very long way of saying no, probably not. Probably not. We probably just used it to get him over to that planet, and then we're never going to deal with it. Never going to know about his sister. He's going to die in Rogue One, never knowing the answer. And that's kind of life, isn't it? I mean, it's only in movies that all the answers are given to us. If they want it to be realistic, maybe it never gets answered. JD says, translation is not on the top of my list. Exactly. So, all right, I got one more story here. James Wan was recently, recently talking about the upcoming Aquaman sequel and whether or not people can expect to see a lot of cameos and crossovers. And he says, well, Aquaman, and even the first film, has always been a very standalone film. That was always our approach, that it kind of lives in its own world. And that's kind of how we've approached The Lost Kingdom as well. You know, people love Jason Momoa, people love him playing this role, and people love the action visuals of this space and this world. And that's what we're doing. We're taking it to the next level, and we are still expanding. And just any fans of Aquaman, the character, that love Black Manta, that this is the next level. And it's very excited to finally put it out there to show them what we've been working on all these years. Sounds like any planned crossovers have gotten the axe, and they may be trying to keep Momoa in the DCU going forward by lessening his ties to the DCEU. And the fact that they're produced by Peter Safran, who's now co-head of DC Studios, I'd say the possibilities are pretty good. So if you're assuming that Momoa is going to come back and be Lobo, or he's going to move on from being Aquaman, he might be one of the few that actually survives being, like I said, one, from Peter Safran movies. Peter Safran's not going to want to cut off the Aquaman films. He's going to want them to do as great as possible. And since the first one did over $1 billion, if the second one can do decent, they're not going to want to get rid of Momoa, and they're not going to, so he's probably one of the reasons why they don't want to do a full-on reboot. John Cena and Amanda Waller, those are probably other characters, Peacemaker and Aquaman and Amanda Waller are probably characters that they want to keep around because they come from either James Gunn or Peter Safran projects. So Josh says, no such thing about an inconsequential Star Wars detail. There's a Wikipedia entry for the president of the factory that made the scissors that Leia's brother used, probably. Oh, Leia's barber used, yes. Yeah, there is no more pedantic group than Star Wars fans. And that's not meant as an insult, because it is so cosmically impressive how pedantic and how much information is out there, and how they will scan every single project, whether it's a book, a comic, a movie, a TV series, a toy, a kids show. Kelleran Beck. When Ahmed Best showed up as Kelleran Beck in The Mandalorian, there were already existing Wikipedia pages out there for him. Okay, this is a guy that showed up on a YouTube kids show that came out during the pandemic. Really? I mean, that's a level of pedantic that you have to sit back and go, well done. Well done. I mean, that is just awesome. So, no, I fully believe that there's probably something like that. What's his name? The ice cream maker guy. Wilro Hood. The fact that there is not only entries for Wilro Hood, that when you go to Star Wars conventions and big conventions, that a bunch of people dress up as Wilro Hood and run around the convention center following each other, carrying these little ice cream makers, and that Jon Favreau went out of his way to take that ice cream maker and make it a thing, a Cantano, and it becomes a big thing in The Mandalorian. That's the pedantic level, and it's damn impressive. And if you are running any franchise and that is the level that your fan base goes to, God bless you, because you are lucky. You are lucky to have that big of a fan base. Marvel's pretty close to that, but the Star Wars fans are next level. you know. So, yeah, they're not going to let the sister thing go. And at some point, you're going to start seeing fan fiction about Andor's sister, and she'll probably join the rebellion and serve with Luke Skywalker, and or probably be one of the pilots on the Death Star, or there'll be some story out there for her, because that's the way the fan base works. All right, guys, let's take a quick break, and we'll come back and talk Secret Invasion Episode 2. Be right back.
Join the party. Head over to our link tree to find all the links for everywhere the experience is all the time.
Imagine being at a convention and going to an interview panel that's just for you. No bustling crowds, no hours-long lines, just you, the moderator, and your favorite comic book creators. Well, this is pretty much that. Miss Jen sits down every week with 2 comic book creators for a live stream interview about their latest work, and you can ask them whatever you want. It's Talking Shop, Mondays at 5 Eastern on The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales. Comic Collectibles is a pretty straightforward show. You got Rex here, he sells the comics, and you got Rockin' Robbie, he knows about the comics. And finally, John, well, no one really knows what John does. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's a great guy, but he just keeps showing up. Come to think of it, I don't even really know how he gets in here. Anyway, awesome comics, rare books, rarer signatures, slabbed books, and amazing cover sketches by Ken Hazer and others. Simple formula, you want the comics, you buy the comics. To sum up, Rex sells the comics, Robbie knows the comics, and John, who might possibly be a ghost. I mean, seriously, has anyone ever seen him show up or leave? Comic Collectibles with Rex and John, Mondays from 6 to 8 Eastern on The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. Please hit the like and subscribe buttons, and we do have some news here. Specifically, this will be news for Larissa, who said that she's got a 4-day pass for San Diego Con. Well, DC has announced their panels for San Diego Con. This just broke. And while they don't have a Hall H presentation, they have a lot of panels. There's going to be one called Building the DC Universe on Webtoon on Thursday. Another one on Thursday is Max Original Animation Presents, and they'll be talking about Adventure Time, Young Love, Harley Quinn. There's another one called Between Two Toms that will feature Tom King and Tom Taylor. So that's all, the comic stuff. A panel on Gotham City, where it's past, present, and future. And that's all on Thursday. On Friday will be new storylines coming up for DC Comics. Dawn of DC Night Terrors, which is a new thing they're doing. Jim Lee is going to have a panel on Friday, as well as you get a chance to see the Justice League War World animated movie. On Saturday, there'll be the World of Metropolis, DC books for young readers. So nothing on Sunday and only 2 things on Saturday. But there's a few interesting panels there. So you got something to do there, Larissa. All right. Oh my God, yes, I saw that. Excellent, excellent. All right, let's go ahead and we're going to get into, before we do, Canonus, if you're still listening, should check out yesterday's episode if you didn't see it. It's all about the new combat patrol for Warhammer 40K. And for anybody watching the show yesterday, Warhammer just released today the rules for combat patrol. They had released the individual rules for each faction, but they hadn't released the overall rules. They're part of the core book that you'd have to get in the Leviathan box or in the core rule book. But they went ahead and released it today as a PDF online. So now, other than the army, everything else you need, all the books, all the information is all free online, available at the Warhammer website or Warhammer community website. So check that out. All right, let's jump into episode 2 of Secret Invasion. Now, this was a really interesting episode, and there was about 10 things that came up, and some of them are more important than others. We start off with a flashback where we get to meet a young Gravik, and also a Skrull who I believe is named Volus. I didn't catch her name fully, but I think it's Volus. And I'm pretty sure she turns out to be really important. But young Gravik, I said last week that I thought maybe Gravik was Fury's son. And while he's not his biological son, I still have a feeling that because Gravik, we find out, is an orphan, that Fury became a father figure for him, if not literally taking him in. So we'll find out more as it goes on. But during the flashback, we meet Gravik. We also kind of get an idea of what Fury was going to do with the Skrulls, kind of use them to start building up his spy network. And, and all while he and Carol Danvers work on this idea of getting a new planet. And we find out that that's really difficult. The reason they weren't able to find a new planet is because a lot of the galaxy is controlled by the Kree, or they're planets that already had populaces that wouldn't want the Kree, the Skrulls there, or they were just uninhabitable planets. So yes, it's been a long time. I mean, this flashback took place in 1995, and in the MCU we're in 2025, so it's been about 30 years. So yes, they haven't kept their promise, but how easy is that a promise to keep? Now, after that flashback, and like I said, we get a good idea that Gravik is an interesting kid. That new recruit that always tag along going to end up being a Super Skrull. That's possible, Joe. I have a feeling it's going to be more than one. And we're going to talk about Super Skrulls very soon. Yeah, Gravik is very angry. After we start off, from the flashback, we go into the aftermath of the explosion, and we see, who pulled Fury off. It's this Russian cop or special forces guy, throws Fury into a van like he's being renditioned, and then it turns out, of course, to be Talos. So good on for Talos. And I think the one thing we can take away from these episodes is overall Talos is a really good friend to Nick Fury and always has his back, even though he didn't do everything he should have or may have done something he shouldn't. We find out that Maria Hill is probably really dead. I mean, they bring the body home with full military honors. We get the confrontation from her mother to Nick Fury, who seems like she blames him, but knows that her daughter would have done anything for Fury. So there's definitely some tension there. And but I don't think they would have done that scene if we could expect Maria to come back later. So any of you out there who's holding on hope, I wouldn't. I think Maria Hill's done. Just saying. We get a scene with Nick and Talos on a train, which is what gave me the idea to do the conductor joke in the beginning of this. And the conversation is very interesting because we get the feeling, or it's like Nick has this idea that Talos hasn't told him something. And he tells this kind of homespun story about his mother and ends up pulling it out of Talos that when Nick was gone, when he blipped away, Talos hadn't. Talos was still on Earth. And we don't know how many of the scrolls was blipped away, but there were, without Fury there, Talos kind of had to make some decisions. And one of the things he did was he signaled any Skrull refugees that were still out there in space that weren't part of the is it the Emperor? They have a guy who's running the Skrull Empire still, kind of a separate group. And he's part of the Secret Invasion, the comics, but he's not part of this one now, or at least not yet. Well, he calls all those Skrulls and tells them, "Come on to Earth. You can live here." And it's like 1 million Skrulls. So you're thinking that sometime in 2018, he called for 1 million Skrulls to come in. So they've been living on the planet for about 7 years, then breeding, procreating. So, there's a lot of Skrulls, and this freaks Fury out, and he ends up going off on Talos and separating from him, telling him to get out. So, Larissa says, I think Don Cheadle's character is a Skrull because of the way he was acting, kind of strange. That's why I wanted Fury gone. It's possible. I have my reservations about him being a Skrull because of the scene we get and how good that scene is. If suddenly that was a Skrull, it wouldn't have the same effect. Yeah, I think he's being ordered to do that, and he's not happy with the way Fury's doing things. But I'm leaning towards him not being a Skrull. Plus, with the fact that they're going to do Armor Wars coming up, I think him being a Skrull would kind of cheapen that. So, but you never know. There's always that possibility. And of course, we're talking about Fury and Rhodey meeting. First, Rhodey meets with the national leaders, and basically is blowing them off. They're like, Fury was there during the explosions, and Rhodes like, no, it wasn't him. But then he meets with Fury, and they have this very intense conversation about being there for, being backing a brother up and all that, and talking about race and how they move up in this thing. And it's a very, very strong conversation. I've heard a lot of people online talking about that might be like an Emmy nominated scene type of thing, that this episode gets Emmy nominated. It's possible. There's a couple scenes in here are really important. But he ends up firing Nick Fury on behalf of the president. And the idea is that they're going to basically take him into custody, take him back to the States, whatever they're going to do with him. And Fury's not having it. He disarms the guard, and but Rhodey never gets up to try to stop him. Doesn't even try. Just lets him go. What year is the series supposed to be in? It is 2025. It is current day in the MCU. So now they do have one important moment where Rhodey goes, I think it's time to call in our friends, meaning the Avengers. And this is something that a lot of people are going to ask. Well, why isn't he calling in the Avengers? And his answer is very interesting. He says because he's afraid that the Skrulls will then duplicate them and start doing terrorist acts as them, causing even more problems. Now, the first thought is, well, they can't duplicate superpowers, at least not yet. And that's true, but they don't have to. if they suddenly appeared as Captain America, as Sam Wilson, and did something in a terrorist act thing, that would cause a huge problem. Or any of the Avengers as Hawkeye, or as Tony Stark. They don't. Well, anybody who's still alive. But the point being that they don't have to necessarily do the powers to cause the terrorist activity. So Ed says, what confused me in episode 1 is it didn't say that Fury left 30 years ago, or did I misunderstand? No, Fury didn't leave 30 years ago. Fury has been on the planet. He left after the snap. When he was gone 5 years because of Thanos. And when he came back, they said he was different. And that's when he ended up going up to Saber and started working on the space station. So he's only been gone maybe a couple years, but he was gone 5 years before that because of the blip. So, but he hasn't been gone 30 years. So, but he, they all say he's different since the blip or the snap. So now let's see. We get an important scene with Gravik and the council that he's now part of, that he took Talos's place. Well, he gets promoted to the head of the Skrull Council as kind of the general, the war general, and and they're kind of supporting him in these actions he's doing, these terrorist actions. A couple dissenters, but it's very interesting to see who's in this council. It's the head of NATO. It's the Prime Minister of England. It's some prominent media figures. It's people of power of one kind or another. And there's a moment where, when they're still deciding if they're going to do it, they say, well, what if the Avengers come back? And he says he has a plan for the Avengers. And we find out what that plan might be. And that is what Joe mentioned earlier, is that it looks like they are putting together a Super Skrull. Now, without the Fantastic Four, the Super Skrull doesn't make a lot of sense as he exists, with the power of Reed, Sue, Johnny, and Ben, because there are no Reed, Sue, Johnny, and Ben. So what they've done is they've found different elements from the MCU that they could pull in and use that genetic DNA and try to put it together and splice it with a Skrull to give them those powers. And we see it on a computer screen what DNA they're pulling from. And we're getting from Groot, because if you remember, he lost different limbs and stuff in the Battle of Wakanda. So there was elements of Groot lying about that they were able to pick up and pull from. And again, all of this stuff would have been picked together by damage control or different government agencies, which the Skrulls are all now part of, so they would have access to all this stuff. They also have DNA from a frost beast. And if you're thinking, well, how the hell did they get that? If you remember Thor: The Dark World, there's a little comedic scene at the end where this frost beast suddenly comes through one of the portals and is just left running through the city, and we never see of it again. Well, it turns out they probably got that, they probably stopped him, and that's where they're getting the DNA from a frost beast. They have some from Cole Obsidian, from when his hand gets chopped off in Avengers Infinity War. And they have some DNA from somebody from the Extremis project, which we last saw in Iron Man 3. So they're pulling this from a lot of different little corners of the MCU. And if you think about it, Extremis, this is kind of the Fantastic Four powers without being the Fantastic Four. Hey, Kenneth. You get Cole Obsidian is kind of like the Thing. He's got a quick healing factor. He's got super strength, super speed. He would be a lot of that. From Groot, they can do the stretchy limbs and stuff. And if you watch the trailer, we see Gravik stretching his arm out at one point, very much like Groot. from Extremis, he would be the extreme heat that Extremis can generate would be the Human Torch. So there's three of them, and then you can't really duplicate invisibility. So instead, they have the ability to turn to like frost or turn frozen solid to protect themselves. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see if they do put all that into a scroll and make a super scroll or multiple super scrolls. Josh says, is it not weird to use the whole NATO questioning the U.S. plot from a country in an active war with Ukraine? I don't know if okay, well, they did question the Russia thing, and they also talked about Slovakia, but I don't know if in the MCU, if there's a war between Ukraine and Russia. That may, I mean, we're not in the same time zone right now. This is 2023 here, it's 2025 there. So it might be over, or it might not have happened in the MCU. So it's possible. Why is all of Europe so quick to side with Russia? I don't necessarily think it's so quick to side with Russia. I think this is a major event, and they're looking at the evidence and they're trying to figure out what's going on. So, and I think what we've seen in the first episode is that Gravik and his crew are ramping up tensions between everybody. So I could see that right now, all the countries are suspicious of each other. So they see America do this to Russia, and they're questioning it. So, and they do have video footage, and it's legit video footage. So, all right. We finally get to see Sonia Fallsworth in action, Olivia Colman's character, and we get to see her basically interrogating one of the Skrulls who was part of the explosion thing, the one known as Pagan. I got his name differently in the show, but he's listed as Pagan. So he's the one that we see draining the memories of an American and is posing as an American. When he gets captured, he keeps yelling, I'm an American, I'm an American. So he's there to put the blame on America. Well, Sonia goes in and is able to get information out of him by shooting him full of a chemical that basically boils his blood inside of him, which is not a very nice thing, and also chops his finger off to find out if he's a Skrull, which is an effective way to do it. And she gets the information she wants, which is about the scientists who are working for Gravik. That would be Rosa Dalton and her husband. And then she gets out of there just as Gravik shows up to rescue Pagan, but he then goes and has Pagan killed. So not sure what's going on with that. And then at the end, of course, we have the big, oh my God moment when Fury heads home and walks in, and we discover that he's got a wife. Her name is Priscilla. And when he gets home, he has to put his ring on, and that she's a Skrull. So Nick Fury's married to a Skrull. That is the big reveal at the end there. And I think she's the same Skrull that introduces him to Gravik in the beginning. So yeah, Fury is married to a Skrull. And that's why I still think that maybe Fury became a father figure for Gravik, and why this is so personal for Gravik, and why he's so angry. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if they actually raised him as their own son, but he's not Fury's actual son. But he is an orphan, and I think they may have taken him in, or at least Fury became a father figure for him, and that's why it's so personal, and that's why he killed Maria Hill, because he wanted to hurt Fury. So, all right, that's my thoughts on the episode. I think the Super Skrull thing is a fascinating thing. I don't necessarily think Rhodey's going to be a Skrull. I think he'll end up helping Fury out in the end. But we'll have to find out. We'll have to see. We still got 4 more episodes. Yeah, it's just going to be interesting to see how all this turns out. I think this is a really fun series so far. A lot of interesting twists and turns. So, all right, let's go ahead and take our second break, and we'll do some key collectibles, and that'll be the show. So come right back.
Did you know that every experience show, including some exclusive content, streams on Twitch? Check it out. twitch.tv/the_EXP. Or just scan that QR code. You know how when you go to Comic-Con, after Comic-Con, you go to the hotel bar, and there's a whole bunch of people playing music and dancing, and you've got Pikachu and Lara Croft Tomb Raider doing the cha-cha slide just down from Deadpool and Batman and Wonder Woman? That's every Saturday night over on the Experience Twitch channel. Join Taji Beats for the EXP Dance Party, exclusively on Twitch, twitch.tv/the_EXP. Go follow the experience on TikTok at @the_EXP1 or scan the QR code on the screen. Our TikTok is like everywhere else we are, except you only have to deal with us for a minute. Seems like a win-win to me.
People, we are back, and please hit the like and subscribe buttons if you get a chance. And we're going to do some key collectibles if JD has them ready. Since we just had Superman come up earlier this week with the new Superman, I thought we'd do some key Superman collectibles. Some of these we may have done before, but I think I got some new ones in here. Starting off, of course, with the first appearance of both Superman and Lois Lane, Action Comics #1 from 1938. This goes for $4.6 million. $1.1 million for a median copy. And just for a low-end Thrasher reader copy, you're still paying $175,000. It's good to have this one if you already do. Action Comics #23 is the first appearance of Lex Luthor. That goes for about $27,000 on the high end, $6,800 on the median, and $2,200 on the low end. Superman #7. This was the first time we get an appearance of Perry White, who was actually created in the radio program. High end on this is $5,400, median's about $1,600, low end is just over $500. Action Comics #6, which fascinates me because that means the 6th issue with Superman in it, and he's not on the cover. This is the first appearance of an unnamed office boy who would later become known as Jimmy Olsen. Now, this goes for about $39,000, $9,000 on the median, and $3,000 on the low end. And then we get Superman #13, where Jimmy Olsen is named. Now, I believe he also gets named in the radio program first, and then they bring the name in here. That's $6,600 on the high end, $1,800 on the median, $660 on the low end. Brainiac first appeared and his origin in Action Comics 248 in 1958. This goes for about 10 grand on the high end, 3 grand on the median, and 1,000 on the low end. Superman #1, of course, was the first solo Superman title and his origin story. This goes for 3.1 million, 976,000 on the median, and a pittance of money, $110,000 for a low-end reader copy. Nobody's reading that book. Superman #61. This is the first introduction of kryptonite. This goes for 1,800 on the high end, 600 on the median, 180 on the low end. And of course, Action Comics #241 from 1958. This is the introduction of the Fortress of Solitude. This goes for about $600 on the high end, 180 on the median, $60 on the low end. And finally, Action Comics 262 from 1960 is the introduction of the concept of kryptonite and how he gets his powers. No, this was the introduction of the idea that Kryptonians get their powers from the yellow sun. This goes for a high of 160, median of 50, low end of 15. So that's a pretty important issue as it goes. Life goals, reader copy of Superman #1. You and me both, buddy. You and me both. So what is it? Ed says, I shouldn't have had high hopes for Secret Invasion, really hoping they at least give the villain more of a motivation than impatience. I think it is. I think it's not just impatience. I think it's betrayal. I think it's going to come down to the fact that it's not that they haven't succeeded, it's that Fury promised him, and he's already lost a set of parents. So I think there's just a lot of anger in the guy, and it was never properly addressed when he was young, so it's been building up. I think there are a good number of people into it. I think there's still a lot of people waiting to binge watch it, and I'm not sure if that's a good idea because there's a lot of key things coming out that I think will spoil the show. If you already know that X is going to die and this person is a Skrull, it's going to take away from a lot of the reveals. So this is a show I think people should be watching as it comes out. So JD says, only 110,000. I've got that under my mattress. Well, if I had that much under my mattress, I'd just go ahead and buy a new mattress because I could use a new mattress. All right. So next week, we will not be doing a show on Tuesday because the 4th of July. On Wednesday, I'm hoping to have watched The Witcher. So get all caught up on The Witcher. And on Thursday, we will talk about the new Secret Invasion. I might try to put together kind of a deep dive into the Super Skrull so people can get more of a history of the character since he appears to be, or the concept appears to be coming up. So I'm going to look into doing a deep dive on the Super Skrull. And I am working out a chance to interview my former Pop Go the Writers co-host, Dan Taylor, who is doing a new Kickstarter project that's going to be launching soon named Star Marshals. So you'll want to tune in for that. JDC has no shows on the 4th. We do have a Devil's Advocate on Monday, but everyone else is off. Should be a special extra long show, though. So, yeah, it's just going to be Bronze and Kyle just ranting for hours, just absolute hours. Yeah. Ed says, have a great holiday weekend, Dan. Thank you. You doing the YouTube show Sunday with Jim? Yes, that's still scheduled. It's still planned. So unless Jim calls it off, I'm still planning on doing it. All right, guys, have a terrific weekend. If I see you Sunday, great. If not, have a safe and sane holiday. Be careful with fireworks if you're setting them off. By the way, if you're in another country and you don't do 4th of July, just have a great week. But if you're in England, sorry we kicked your butt. Just saying. Not really, but But if you are letting off fireworks, please be careful. I want to make sure you guys are all here next week and we can do more shows. So have a great time, and I'll see you soon.
Do you remember what it was like when you were a little kid and you got a letter in the mail? Now imagine that letter was filled with information about your favorite shows, pop culture questions, links to things you're going to want to see later, and even sneak peeks at upcoming programming here on The Experience. That's what the EXP mailing list is. Every week, we send you sneak peeks, information, and all of the relevant links for all of the shows you want to see. Sign up now on our website or scan the QR code that's on your screen right now.